Hello, welcome to another episode of the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition Forum. My name is David Dadekian. I'm your host and a small business owner here in Rhode Island. I own Eat Drink Rhode Island. And today we've got a really great guest. We've got Governor Dan Mckee with us. We're going to be talking to him about his campaign coming up as he's running for governor again. So let's welcome in our guest without any further ado, a man who doesn't need any big introductions, but we're going to let him say hello to you and talk to you a bit about his campaign and things of that nature. Let's start there.
Yeah, hi Dave. Hi Dave. Thanks to you and Chris and the whole coalition. Working together as this pandemic started to unfold and getting the small business, business.
There was a slight delay there. Why don't you start again and say hello?
Yeah. So no, it's great to be here, Dave. And thank you for keeping this forum going on behalf of the small businesses and the coalition. I certainly recall as the pandemic began, talking to Chris and Justin and others about how we're going to get a strong voice for the small businesses, and it has taken off, and you have been a big part of that. And so I think we know the history, but it certainly took work.
Yes.
We identified as a small business owner myself, the fact that we were going to get on one of these other roller coaster rides very early on. Having gone through a few of them as a business owner myself, small business, I took this real personal, and we were able to make some really good things happen. But it happened because of yourself and hundreds of other small businesses who have put together their efforts to become a strong voice for the small business community in the state.
Yes, thank you, Governor. We really certainly do appreciate everything that you did as Lieutenant Governor in helping us get this coalition going. As you say, it's a coalition for all small businesses. We're not looking at any one particular sector. We're trying to just cover the wide range of small businesses here in the state. Obviously, I'm the food sector. Chris is marketing. So many different things. You yourself came out of small businesses. Your family's oil business and things of that nature. So I mean, you know how it works. It's a tough business, but it's a good thing if you want to be a small business. It's a good entrepreneurial driving spirit.
Well, it takes a lot of persistence. It takes a lot of hard work, right?
Yep.
Growing up, my dad and his brothers was in a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year job in terms of hot water and heat and oil deliveries, and I grew up that way. So to me, each day of the week is the same. I count my blessings every day, but every day a Saturday's like a Monday and a Sunday's like a Tuesday. I mean, it's like,
Right.
the routine. So bringing that to the table for the small businesses, I think, has really been helpful, not only as a lieutenant governor, but now as governor. And as a governor, I made sure that our budget had an article in there to help our small businesses. We continue to gather the information, but we proposed lowering the corporate minimum tax. That didn't go through, but I'm going to keep on doing that.
Right.
Got some ideas that we want to run by you, Dave. But we also found areas to level playing fields initially between our state and our bordering states of Massachusetts and Connecticut. We've lowered the penalties for late payments. We know it's been a struggle for many businesses right now to make their payments on time. We were having usury rates. We've lowered that down to a level that's consistent with both Mass and Connecticut. One of my favorites, David, and that's what we're looking for when we talk to the small businesses, is their motorcycle. We were approached by them. Trade-in values in motorcycles in Rhode Island had not been deducted from the sale price, so they never paid the net. They always paid the gross amount. We were able to get that measure passed, and now people who trade in their motorcycles in Rhode Island to dealers in Rhode Island, they'll play on the net value, and then those motorcycles that have been traded in will be sold, and then we'll collect the sales tax on that. And so we're doing an analysis on that right now to determine whether that was a positive, a negative, or neutral. But those are all things that we're working on behalf of the small businesses. And I would just say any small businesses out there to have a thought about where there's an unlevel playing field, we can do the math. And then when the budget cycle comes around next year, we'll plug that in the budget like we did with the motorcycle issues to take it outside, the liquor to go, which we were able to put in our budget. And then the General Assembly passed their own legislation that mirrored what we put in the budget. as well as some issues that are, supportive of our small businesses in many, many ways.
Yep. No, I've certainly been part of some of those things in the food world. We've got cottage food went through, for baked goods. So it's great to see. It's really fantastic to see. So clearly, you have in running for governor, you've also got your record to stand on, which is fantastic. And you about 18 months now as governor.
Yeah, about a year and a half, just shy of a year and a half.
Yeah. And so I think, it's fascinating. We're going to obviously focus on small business issues here, but obviously the governor's role covers anything and everything to do with the state. And I think that's the interesting thing people have to realize sometimes is we're going to focus on small business. We're going to talk about business, but housing, healthcare, childcare, education, all those aspects affect small businesses as well. So I think it's fascinating to look at the role of the governor and all the other elected officials in the state and see how much does impact small business. Let's start with the pandemic. Let's start with that, because that was obviously the big thing you came into, and as we mentioned previously, you were such a big help to us during the pandemic for small businesses. What are your thoughts as we come out of it, as we move out of it? What are your thoughts in assistance and other things that we've put into place for small businesses during the pandemic that might be able to stay in place or adapt, or things of that nature?
Yeah, if you put yourself in my seat, a year and a half ago, year and 4 months ago, Rhode Island was in the biggest state of emergency in my lifetime, and probably in the history of the state of Rhode Island. It's absent maybe the Great Depression, right? We didn't know where we were going to be, David, right?
Right.
And so when I came in, we had a lot of good people working very hard on vaccinations, but we were one of the lowest in the country, if not the lowest in the country on vaccinations. And I was able to bring municipalities in as a former mayor in a way to add in and to build up capacity to do as much as 100,000 shots in a week. Now we're number one in the country. And what did that do for us? What that allowed us to do was open up our economy quicker. And right now we're the fastest reopening economy in the Northeast. Last time I saw second in the country. So when you got the pandemic right, in terms of the vaccinations, you lowered the hospitalizations, you lowered our death rate. We had one of the highest, if not the highest, death rates in the country. So when I came in, it was a challenge, right? And a challenge that I've stepped up in a way that I think that you and others who know me would expect I would. And I had it was certainly baptism on the fire to a large degree, right? But it allowed us to open up the economy. And I think that's when I said there'd be music in Newport, when I got on the stage with everybody with their masks on last March of 2021. That was a relief to the event and the entertainment industry. We had the first outside concert in the country last summer. And you have to kind of go back to where I was. We didn't know where the economy was going to go. We didn't know where the health was going to go. We didn't know where our schools were going to go. There's a lot of equity issues that we're focused on to make sure that everybody, level the playing fields. So we didn't know where that was. I can tell you that on the campaign side, I promised that I would manage the state and get a budget passed. And I'm going to want to really talk about what's in there, because it's a budget that has economic growth for the next 5 years, David. When do we ever have that? And it's a combination. But, inside the campaign, the people who are running against me, they didn't do anything to help make that happen. In fact, they've been an obstacle to that, because their critique and their pot shots have always been part of the challenge in actually getting us where we are right now. And where we are is really in a good spot. We managed the largest surplus that the state has ever had on the budget side. We held off partnering with the General Assembly leadership, the Speaker and the Senate President, spending the $1 billion until the first 10% was in a down payment in January that was passed, and we've been getting those out in a way that's helping the economy. But we were smart to be patient, and we used the surplus, over $700 million surplus, Dave, that now is investing back in to loose ends like the Elena Slater Hospital, right? That was left go. Yeah. And we used $178 million of the surplus to fix that. We used $100 million of the surplus to free up $400 million of federal money for infrastructure. That was just on the surplus side. We also put in over $100 million, 50 for our K through 12, another $50 million of surplus dollars into our universities and our education to create, improvements and new facilities, including a $250 million bond we have on there for education, which was my third priority besides the health, the economy, the schools, and then the equity piece. We've rebuilt the whole equity office in the state of Rhode Island, including my office, because there's a lot of diversity there. And we're really focused on that because we want to make sure that everyone has this opportunity we have. And I'll end it with, I've never seen as much momentum which I see right now. The Rhode Island 2030 plan, which you've been involved in, the ri2030.com is a blueprint for the state of Rhode Island. And one of the challenges we have is that we have the lowest unemployment rate we've had in 34 years, and yet there's still a lot of jobs to fill. So that becomes the challenge. How are we going to do that? But I'll leave it at there. I mean, that's in general, but I can just tell you over and over again, there'll be lights on Superman building. That happened because I brought people together. There's going to be a new strategy for a bus terminal in Providence that they couldn't figure out. We're very close to figuring out how to make sure that the Pawtucket Tidewater project, continues, and we get the benefit of that, protecting taxpayers, but at the same time putting people to work. As I say with labor, there's prevailing wages. We haven't even talked about the offshore wind capacities, what we have leading in the country, and we're leading in a way out of our office and our budget that reflects that. So good paying jobs. I kind of tongue in cheek say, all right, well, you get good paying jobs, and guess where they use the money? They go buy the pizza at the local small business shop, right? They do business with the community. So that's why the economy is so important, David. But I'll leave it there. We can certainly talk about other issues, but I thank you for the opportunity to kind of give a broad brush of the type of work that we're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's encouraging to hear all those things, and as you mentioned, obviously the surplus and the federal money is an aid that seems to be being used wisely, which is fantastic. I do think we should discuss some of the challenges, some of the difficulties. I think that realistically speaking, that's sometimes it's not the best part of the conversation, but it's an important part of the conversation. And what a lot of our members in the coalition emailed me and texted me about over the last week when I said that I was interviewing you was they wanted to talk about the CNBC ranking that came out last week.
Yes.
For the ranking for businesses. Now I want to preface this by saying that I've already previously interviewed folks and Gorbea, and those rankings weren't out yet. So I wasn't able to ask them this same question yet and talk about these rankings. And I also want to point out that I went and I looked at the listings of data that CNBC draw from, and most of the data was collected prior to your becoming governor. So I do want to point out that the ranking is not reflective of you or your administration. It's a ranking of 45 out of 50. It is up a notch from 46 of the previous year. But regardless of that, and how it doesn't fall upon your administration, it's hard to see that it wouldn't be, dramatically different. Hopefully in the future it will be. A lot of the things our members pointed out was workforce, like you just mentioned, a major issue. Last time I checked, the unemployment's at 2.9%, which sounds fantastic. It really is amazing, and a credit to our economic recovery to have that. But yeah, it's really hard still for people to find employees. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Where do you see, how I know there's some great training programs, but what's the incentive? What can we do?
Yeah, so I happen to think that there's a need for a population growth strategy in the state of Rhode Island. I do think these it's, as I said, it's incremental improvements that you have to have some level of patience on. I've done this in education, David, and it takes a while if you got the right path going. I would say that you're right. I mean, those metrics on that ranking are basically prior to when I'm in, and some of it's a time frame that I've been in office. So I think it's about multiple things, right? One is we got to improve our education. We got to create paths for our young people, not only on the 2-year, 4 years degrees, but also on the skill and the certificate degrees, which would be in multiple industries. So we have to really be intentional about that. So the education, a big piece. The other issues, I think we have to be very, like I did with the thumbtack. I brought the people who were giving us the rankings on Thumbtack to Rhode Island 3 different times. We had an F 5 years in a row. I was probably the only one that was working on those rankings, and now we're virtually almost at a B, which is not bad if you're coming from an F. So if you're coming from 50 and you get, we have to be realistic of where we are. I think what our goals should be is initial goals, just like I said earlier, it's Connecticut and Massachusetts. That's who we should be. That's our goals. Those are reachable goals because they're in our same, hemisphere, right, so to speak. Those are very reachable goals. And we need to find out, just like I did this year with the motorcycle issue, where's that unlevel playing field, right? And so we got to identify those unlevel playing fields. And then we need a coalition like the Small Business Coalition here that is going to really be advocating hard. And they'll have a friend in the governor's office with me. And then each year, my intention is to put an article in the budget that'll balance before it gets there to the General Assembly, and then continue to tackle one issue at a time. I have proposed a reduction in the sales tax to make it consistent with Connecticut and Massachusetts. I do believe that that's one of our black marks, even though it's only a half a point between us, 3/4 of a point between us and Massachusetts, and about I think it's like about a half a point between us and Connecticut. Right. But my belief is that's where you start, David. You find these achievable metrics. You look at them. You look at where Massachusetts is right now in some of these rankings, where Connecticut is, where we are, and I think that's the first step is to create a path to get there. Our Rhode Island 2030 plan is the only plan that's out there that's ever been built, and it's included people like you say in education, on health, on small business, on green energy, on blue economy, and our budget reflects that plan. So if you have consistently moving in that direction, I'm very confident that we will reach where Massachusetts and Connecticut levels are in a relatively short period of time. And then we can discuss what we're going to go from there. But we have been very aggressive on the offshore wind strategies. That's when both our economy and our environment have actually intersected. And that's a way that we can really stabilize some of our energy costs. What we just got passed in the bill that I put in this year was procuring up to 1,000 megawatts of energy, and that would actually energize over 500,000 homes in the state of Rhode Island, and we are headed in that direction by 2030. So I think that one of the things is this: it's not a light switch. You just can't turn it on and off. And what we're doing, and we've set the groundwork, and I understand what to do. So it's a matter of just stay in the course and continue putting those articles in the budget, and then convincing the General Assembly that investing in our small businesses and in our business in general makes sense. I would say that we have made progress that is not being really calculated in, because like you say, this predated what the work that I've done in the last year and a half on infrastructure alone. We're gonna improve the infrastructure issue. On the energy issue,
actually my next topic was infrastructure. I really I think people think about infrastructure, they think it's not very sexy or whatever, but it's just extraordinarily important, and especially to small businesses. If you have good infrastructure, people can get to your business, you can do better business. What are you doing there? Explain that path, because I think that's extremely important.
So I mean that's one of the metrics that's being used, and I don't think that we've maximized that. I mean, there's been a great deal amount of work on the bridges. We've had the Deputy Secretary of Transportation in our state last week, and she was very, very, very much impressed with the work that we have done. That plan predated me, but I put it on steroids now by using $100 million of surplus money to free up an additional $400 million for infrastructure for our roads. And so we were in Warwick today talking about the gateway to our airport. People come to our state. That's the first thing they see. Really enhancing that, putting trees and flowers, and really welcome that as people come into our airport. The airport's going to play a major role in this, so the infrastructure is really important. Our roads, our bridges, our bikeways, investing in them. Those are our recreational and areas where people really enjoy, and the investment in that area is going to be significant. And we're very fortunate to be able to layer into the budget especially in the APRA dollars, investments in our infrastructure, whether it has to do with electrifying vehicles, which is going to happen faster
yes.
than any of us imagined. And so it's a position in ourselves as a state that's looking towards the future, identifying goals that we can reach in Massachusetts and Connecticut, and then actually implementing the work that we have, and then using the network that I've been able to develop from the White House all the way through our congressional delegation, right to our local mayors and council people, in terms of bringing them together on issues that if the infrastructure is an important one, David, but we need to know how we're getting measured, and then we need to respond to that. We've got the momentum that we need, and I would tell you, I always say, like, if it's raining, don't tell me the sun's shining. But when good things are starting to happen, when was the last time that Rhode Island has ever been first out of an economic downturn?
Right.
Never.
It's very true. Yeah, no, we've discussed
Never.
that several times on the show. Yeah.
Never.
It's always first in, last out, and not this time.
And not this time. And we can hold on to that. All we got to do is just stay the course, follow the 2030 plan that we put in place, create. I intend to manage another surplus this year. I did it as a mayor for 12 years, and then use those surplus dollars to invest in our infrastructure, into our facilities. I mean, this year alone, we put $47 million into making sure that we're preserving our state house. And so that's never been done before, because no one had, quite frankly, the backbone to say that just because, politicians are in there, that, we don't want. No, that is one of our jewels. And so I recognize that, but also put $47 million into the convention center. We're going to do almost $250 million of total investment in the Superman building. The bus terminal that we have on chart, I've been able to get that back on track. There's going to be a multi-purpose type of a construction there for a new bus terminal in Providence with housing and retail. The investment we're going to make in Quonset, the list is so long. So over $60 million is going to go into Quonset to build out that port. Another $35 million into East Providence to develop that port with a music center similar to what they have at the Seaport up in Boston, right here in East Providence. Right. And then additional investment in our fisheries down in Galilee. So the momentum we have is real. The investments we're going to make, whether it's coming out of the federal dollars or out of our surplus or out of just the general budget that I manage and pass, that's something that we just need to take full advantage of, David. And so I understand what to do. And I think the early success that we've had, both with the vaccination being number one in the country, second in the country right now on recovery, right? Our schools are reopening. I understand schools really well. And then leveling the playing field amongst all the communities that make up our communities in the state is only going to increase incomes, which is my number one goal. In addition to that, you got the largest project on Amazon that's being built right now in Johnston. 1,200 new jobs there that are coming. Fidelity, over 850 jobs. Electric Boat, over 1,000 jobs a year because of the investments that are being made right now in the state of Rhode Island. And yes, we do have challenges. And one of our biggest challenges right now, David, is we have 350,000 people on Medicaid right now in the state of Rhode Island, of a little over 1 million people. 55% of our kids under 18 are on Medicaid. This is a real big problem. And we need to raise people's incomes by doing the things I've just described, and do that in a way across the board. And that's going to be very measurable. And I'm going to tell you, when that number comes down, our economic viability is going to increase, and and those rankings are going to improve. And we're on the right track. I would say to everybody out there, why would you want to change quarterbacks at this point in time when you actually got the momentum and you're driving the ball down the field for a touchdown?
It's a very compelling pitch, sir. Thank you. I like also, you list a lot of those items and people don't really think of them as small business issues, but construction, a lot of small businesses are construction businesses. There's a lot of small healthcare businesses, obviously doctors' offices and accounting officers and lawyer law firms are small businesses in many cases. So you really do get a chance to help and boost all those small businesses. One of the ones that we had a bunch of people from the coalition ask me about, they wanted me to ask you is cannabis is now legal for retail sales. And several members applaud that and are curious. It feels to some of them that there's already some large players looking to come into Rhode Island and take over. What can be done for the small entrepreneur in Rhode Island who wants to get into this market? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think the first of the cultivators, that was a non-negotiable for me, was that the people who had already invested in their small businesses were protected. They're going to get a jump start, I think, of 18 months before anybody else comes into that area. I believe that's what it is in that area, Dave. I'm not absolutely sure. But anyways, we're going to give them a jump start. And the growers that are already invested their dollars, primarily small businesses, are going to have the ability to establish themselves in a market. That'll be a new market. So I know that we worked with them, just like we worked with our farmers to put additional dollars in for grants for our farmers in this budget, or our small businesses in terms of making sure that, the take it outside dollars are still available. You mentioned Liz Tanner beforehand. She's, I know, Secretary of Commerce. She's really tackling issues. We got rid of the SAM number on the grants, and I'm so pleased about that. And Liz was so happy within 3 days she was able to accommodate that, and now we're getting money out even faster than we were before. So so I think it's really important that we address the things that you're talking about, and I think they have been addressed in our budget. Our budget is a sound one, and your point is well taken. When we start talking about the offshore wind, for instance, it's going to put many people to work, but it's also going to put a number of small businesses in the supply chain, right?
Yep.
If we're doing work at any area in the state of Rhode Island and increasing the infrastructure, that puts people to work. And the more money the more money you get into the economy, the more flexibility they have to support our small businesses. I would say one of our challenges, David, right now is to even get a louder voice for the small businesses. I think that we had a couple strategies that I had put in place that did not get over the finish line. One was to provide some dollars to help as businesses access capital, which they're going to have to do in a more traditional way in terms of like regular loans. So that was in there. We had some dollars that were set aside that we felt as though were going to help some minority businesses. That got cut a little bit. We had some dollars set aside to actually help businesses that are still recovering and that had took a substantial hit in some of their businesses, and that didn't get off the finish line. But we have many things that did, and we're going to continue to work on that. And next year, I'm going to be working on the sales tax. We're going to continue to work on strategies, and we're gaining information. We're still on the road having small business forums where people are weighing in. We're going to continue doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've discussed past there, we've all said this, it's a marathon to change some of these things. You don't just change them in a one session. You have to go through them a few times, iterate it, and see what you can change and improve. Let me hit a few. I've got a few more questions here from our members. I want to hit you with. One of them is the Lieutenant Governor had a permanent small business advocacy council, and it used to be made up of more small businesses, chambers, and support groups, and now it's more of a government group. Any thoughts at returning it to more small business owners and entrepreneurs? Obviously, we've got our organization, and we're very happy to form the coalition. But we want to make sure we have much of an inroad as possible there. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges, David, we had prior to the pandemic, and this has been a bonus, this coalition, and I literally look towards the members of this coalition to really become leaders on behalf of small businesses. But we had trouble at that point in time actually bringing people in. I started to go around, took it away from Commerce, the meeting, and started to plop it around the state, whether it was in Gloucester or whether it was, I can recall being down North Kingstown, or we started to go around Cranston and Northern, to just because we know that the businesses, that time is so valuable, and a lot of them are really the chief cook and bottle washer of of a
Yeah.
lot of their facilities. So I think that we need to continue to work on that. I think this coalition is very important. I know it is to Sabina. She's been a really good partner for me. I'm asking people to support her as well. And if there's a way that we can connect in a better way, I think we absolutely should. I'll talk to her about that because the more representation we get, and one of the big values that I think that we have right now is what we're doing right now. Right, we didn't have this virtual. Ben Baba, by the way, I think he's still helping you out, and two thumbs up to Ben.
Absolutely.
We never had this as a vehicle. This could be the vehicle to have those meetings on a monthly or quarterly basis, and then people would be able to either listen in on tape, or they could actually participate in a way that we have in the past. So I would encourage using this venue strategy for meetings out of that advocacy council, and I think that more participation would come.
Great. Well, you're not going to get an argument from the coalition on that. That's for sure. We had a question. It's interesting. You recently signed 3 bills for responsible gun safety, and one of our members asked, since large capacity magazines are now banned, would you consider a statewide buyback program through small gun shops, so small businesses, allowing them to keep some of the income for handling that process?
The answer is yes. We are looking at that, David, right now. I've been listening to people who are in that world that they want to comply, but they also know they've made an investment, and we're talking about strategies that could do that. And also, I've had conversations with the community that owns the magazines, and they own the gun, and some of them are upset. Others are ready to comply, but they say fair is fair, and I agree with that. So we are putting something together right now that I would expect that we'll have an announcement of a buyback strategy. During the this is a 180-day, right? This is a 6-month process to kind of from the beginning to the implementation. So I would expect to have something within the next 30 days that would be a buyback strategy, but we want to talk to the gun owners themselves. So if you've got people asking that question, we'd love to be able to follow up with them. So just tell us if they're willing to talk to us about a strategy that they would support on a buyback. I think that the measures that were passed are reasonable under the circumstances, and we cannot not have our eyes wide open on this issue. There's no one thing you can do. I've said this. We're doing a great deal of school safety inspections right now, and opening up $500,000 to any school district that would want to upgrade some of their safety measures. We know that's part of it. We know mental health's part of it. But we also know access to some of the guns that have been used recently by 18-year-old kids. That's why we moved the date up from 18 to 21. We can't deny it. We know it's not. We know that many people are frustrated by the effort, but the majority of the people in the state are comfortable with what we're doing. But again, we want to work with those who want to either comply or figure out ways to soften the measure without reducing compromising on reducing the risk.
Right. Well, certainly, I'm sure our members that are interested in this will certainly reach out. Another question we had was regarding Secretary Gorbea has a part of her platform is to raise the corporate tax from 7% to 8%, which would match Massachusetts. And she says that would raise an estimated $39 million a year to support small business development, in addition to housing and universal pre-K. What are your thoughts on that suggestion?
I don't think it's time to raise taxes. I don't think we need a tax and spend governor right now. We're coming out of a pandemic. We're managing very well. I just described surpluses. I think that we can maintain those. I think that we will manage to another one this year. Yeah, this is not the moment in time to raise taxes. Where we have a competitive edge, I don't want to give that up. I want a level playing fields where we're the unleveled at a disadvantage to Rhode Island, but where we have an advantage, and one of those big advantages right now, not only for the people that live in our communities, but also our small businesses and our bigger businesses, that the car tax is history, and that happened under our leadership. And that was made possible by us, not only once, the first budget, second budget, and now because we ran a surplus, we're investing those dollars up front to eliminate car taxes in the state of Rhode Island. What does that do for a small business, right? That has any level of fleet. So these are the things that I think when I say when it's raining, I'll tell you it's raining, but when the sun's shining, come on down, let's take a look. But there's no reason right now to be exploring an increase in taxes, and we should be looking at ways to reduce taxes. Like I said, I'm in favor of lowering our sales tax, and I think that we can do it incrementally. And what I intend to do next year would be to start the process, and not as aggressive maybe as I suggested a few months back. But I think we can start the process and incrementally lower it. So this is not the time to raise taxes in Rhode Island. Take a look at where we are, as you said, on rankings, on business rankings, and one of them is the cost of living in the state. Yeah, so we're looking to take advantage of all the jobs that we're going to bring in, the economy that's going to be developed, the revenue that the state is going to see on increases because of increased of people earning more money. And we don't want to be the first in and last out of these economic downturns anymore. Raising taxes is not a way that we can continue to improve.
All right. Well, let's wrap with your opponents in this race. Let's. What do you feel sets you and your agenda apart from Helena Folks and Nellie Gorbea, and then as well, assuming you win the primary, Ashley Kalis?
Yeah. So I worry about. I never go to the finals until you get through the playoffs.
Smart, very smart. I don't disagree with you, but I want to
ask. That's something that can be discussed later on, but. Look, no one's had the experience that I've had coming through the most difficult time frame that the state of Rhode Island has ever seen in my lifetime, and that's what I walked into. So, put yourself in my seat at that point in time, and the unknowns, and then working through from worst to first in vaccination, reopening the economy quicker than anywhere in the Northeast, getting our kids back in school safely certainly is a really important issue to us. I made sure that every teacher, every worker in the schools was vaccinated. That was not on the list when I walked in. And then you take the issue of like making sure you spread the opportunity in a way that I've created diversity in my office with Pastor Chris and Thomas Avila and others, making sure that there's representation there in all our communities. So without forgetting any communities or without stepping over any community, right? So what you're going to see is what you're seeing right now. You're seeing a plan. There's a Rhode Island 2030 plan. Part of that plan is housing. I've had experience on housing. As a mayor, I got the first state-approved affordable housing plan in the state by state planning when I was a mayor. I understand real estate. I've been in the real estate business. And so we got $250 million in there for housing. And we're going to be very aggressive and creative on that. But there's a lot of Johnny-come-latelys coming with my opponents talking about what they're going to do. Well, I've already done it. And the roadmap is there. So people can see where I'm leading us, and then they can determine whether they like that or not. But it's going to be to a better economy, higher paying jobs, better education for our kids, and it's going to be in a safe state that I support our public safety, and that's reflected in my budget as well. No one's invested more in our state police and any governor, and since at least I've been told, than me, and I did that. So you're going to see a state that is really with great momentum, and we're going to continue that momentum. And the facts are the facts, David. You can't say we are first in the country on vaccinations. We are leading the Northeast in our economic recovery. We have put more money in the pockets of the people in the state of Rhode Island through a car tax reduction and other things. We put in a child credit that's going to be $250 per child. And that money is going to go out sometime in October. It's already in process right now to every family, because we know inflationary issues are causing some pressures. So
Absolutely.
the answer really is that I've been tested under fire. I'll let my record stand for itself. And I really do believe that Rhode Island is on the right track. And I think I can prove that by the record that we have right now, Dave. And then we're going to continue to work to make good things happen in Rhode Island. And I'll be asking people to vote for me in September, along with Sabina Matos, and to make sure we keep this momentum going. Momentum that I've never seen before in the history of the state. And I think that we can keep that going if we keep the leadership in place.
Well, thank you very much for that. We should point out to folks, if they want to, obviously, you know who you are, but it's GovernorDanMckee.com is your campaign website. So we should mention GovernorDanMckee.com. Yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't say how great your haircut is, sir.
Well, I do support our small businesses.
You do.
Jen Ortiz, who actually is on the governor's work council now, and Jen takes a lot of pride in her work, and I let people know that we got to support our small businesses, not only my hometown of Cumberland, but all 39 cities and towns.
You certainly do. So we appreciate that. Thank you again for your time, sir. It's really been a great conversation.
Okay, Dave, stay in touch, please. And everybody get out there, support our small business. I feel like I'm a lieutenant governor again, ending the program that we had for a year plus, helping out our small business in the state of Rhode Island. I'm going to continue to be advocating for you, Dave, and make sure that I'm listening and then responding to the ideas that we get.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Take care.
Yeah. Thanks.
So this has been another great conversation with our forum. Thank you very much for joining us. As always, you can find the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition at risbc.org. risbc.org. We've got a lot of information coming up. Sign up for our newsletter, find out what's going on, and check it out again, as we've got a lot more candidates to interview on this great forum. Thank you again. Take care.